So we've had some really big fight announcements recently. Jon Jones versus Stipe Miocic, Chito Vera versus Pedro Munhoz, Tai Tuivasa versus Alexander Volkov, as well as Deiveson Figueiredo versus Dominick Cruz. All been announced recently, so we're going to be going through all of those in today's video, as well as some other smaller fights that have been announced, and I'll give my early prediction and breakdown of all the recent fight announcements that have been made. Starting off with the most recent fight announcement and the biggest one of all of them, Jon Jones versus Stipe Miocic is main eventing UFC 295 in November. That's the MSG card in New York. That got announced today. Big fight, obviously, in the heavyweight division. Retirement fight, most likely, for Jon Jones, as he's been leaning to. And a really important fight in how the rest of the heavyweight division is going to plan out. Um, it's not completely the fight that I was wanting. It's like the fight I was expecting, but I think a lot of people can agree that we all would have preferred Sergey Pavlovich to get the title shot instead of Stipe. I think we all kind of know how this Jon Jones versus Stipe matchup goes. It's really not a favourable matchup for Stipe Miocic, who is 40 years of age as of right now, and I think he'll almost be 41 when this fight takes place, and he's been out of the octagon since March 2021. So it's been a really very inactive for Stipe Miocic, and he really just hasn't shown that much interest in fighting often. He turned down Jones in December last year. He turned down other fights and stuff. It's really always been hard to get him back in the cage, and I think inactivity is going to play a big factor in how this matchup goes. I think Jon Jones was inactive, but he's came back now and he's got his fire back. He's got his hunger to extend his legacy and to cement his legacy at heavyweight. But Stipe Miocic, I think he's kind of gone past that, being a real 100% fighter all the time, and now he's doing he's a firefighter part time. He's really not. Doesn't seem like he's fully committed to the game. Maybe he's going to put one last hard training camp into his career and have one last shot at trying to beat Jon Jones, but I just don't see it happening. I'm picking Jon Jones to win this fight via probably a sub, maybe a TKO. I'm picking him to finish Stipe Miocic inside 4 rounds, probably inside 3 rounds if I'm being honest. It really just depends on how Stipe shows up and also how Jon Jones shows up. If Jones shows up and he's super motivated to win this fight dominantly and destroy Stipe Miocic, and then Stipe shows up just to collect a paycheck and ride off into the sunset in a matchup against another great of the sport, then I can see him really getting dominated in this fight. But if he really comes into this fight with the mindset of trying to win and he actually still thinks he's got something left in his career, I could see this being a little bit more competitive and maybe he goes into the fourth or fifth rounds or maybe even goes to decision. But right now, I just think what we saw with Jon Jones against Cyril Gane, I think that's just a vast difference in skill between the heavyweight and the light heavyweight divisions. I think it's really been exposed how little skill the heavyweights have when it comes to wrestling for the most part, with the exception of guys like Jailton Almeida, and I guess you could say Curtis Blades, maybe Sergey Spivak and Tom Aspinall, but there really haven't been in recent memory a lot of massive heavyweight wrestlers that have just been dominant in the grappling, and I think Stipe hasn't faced one of those either. Um, Obviously fought Daniel Cormier. He's fought a bunch of guys previously, but I think it's just a new style and a different kind of level of intensity in the grappling and also on the feet as well. Jon Jones, I see him even if he doesn't get a takedown here, even if he keeps this fight on the feet the whole time, I can see him just tearing up Stipe with leg kicks, using his range, probably eye poking him a few times, um, just affecting his vision, and then he'll probably just start putting combinations on him. Um, but this is really just an unfavorable matchup for Stipe. I think that's why the Sergey Pavlovich matchup really was the one to go with, in my opinion. It was a lot more intriguing and not like a set in stone outcome like this is going to be in many people's eyes. I don't know many people that are really actually going to pick Stipe. I know a lot of people are going to be hoping Stipe wins, me included. I don't like Jon Jones as a person, but I just can't see him losing this fight. You got to respect the skill. You don't have to respect the person, but you can have to respect the skill. And Jon Jones is arguably the most skilled athlete to ever do it. And I just don't think Stipe at 40 years of age is going to be able to keep up with with a Jon Jones coming from light heavyweight, hungry to cement his legacy. If he wins this fight, I can see him kind of calling himself the GOAT of heavyweight as well, even though this wouldn't make him the heavyweight GOAT in my opinion. but I think beating who many people see as the heavyweight GOAT, it's pretty much between Stipe and Fedor. Beating Stipe would really cement his legacy. I think after this fight he would be 29-1, I believe, with that one no contest. Basically undefeated though, so in all records he's pretty much 30-0 if he wins this fight. Um, so yeah, I just think Jon Jones is more motivated, more hungry, looks better in his last fight. Stipe Miocic is coming off a vicious KO loss to Francis Ngannou as well. That doesn't look good for him in my opinion too. Hasn't been training full time either. He's just kind of been chilling. Like he at 40 years of age, I just can't trust Stipe to really look at his best. And I think you're going to need to look at your best if you're going to beat Jon Jones. And that's just what I don't think Stipe is going to show up looking like. So I'm picking Jon Jones to win this fight. I'll go official call or early lean, third round submission with a guillotine or a rear naked choke for Jon Jones. I think he'll beat him up on the feet, knock him down and submit him, and he'll win and ride off into the sunset. But moving on to the next fight announcement that has been made, and the second most recent one, Marlon Chito Vera versus Pedro Munhoz is official for August 19th. That's UFC 292. Really exciting matchup here in the bantamweight division. Obviously, Henry Cejudo recently pulled out of that fight with Chito Vera, and it remained to be seen who was going to be the replacement opponent. Peter Yan turned it down. He said he wanted to wait out, so a lot of people kind of figured it would be Munhoz. I just did some kind of thinking. I looked through the division and I said everyone here up to number 11 is either booked or injured. Um, so I just kind of knew it was going to be Pedro Munhoz. Really good fight in the bantamweight division. It's going to be 3 rounds, and I can actually see this being a lot more competitive than people are going to imagine it. I think a lot of people are going to go into this fight thinking that Chito Vera is going to knock him out and steamroll him and win easily. But I'm not so confident. I'll pick. My early pick will be for Chito Vera to win this fight, but I'm not 100% sure that he knocks him out. I think he'll win a decision, to be honest. I think if you look at his recent fight against Sandhagen, it really got just shown to be a different level in the striking and in the overall skill of Marlon Vera compared to the top of the bantamweight division. Even in the Rob Font fight, the Dominick Cruz fight, it was pretty clear that both of those guys were better technically than Chito Vera, but he was just getting past on his power and his chin as well. He wasn't getting hurt, but then he was hurting them when he hit them. Like with that Rob Font fight, he was getting pieced up. Rob Font landed like 200 strikes on him, somehow took no damage in that fight. But Rob Font was winning like all of those rounds until he just got hurt in each of the rounds and got dropped at the end. And by the end of the fight, he looked like he'd been put through a blender. But I don't see that happening with Pedro Munhoz. I think he's pretty defensively sound. Um, he's never shown to have the worst chin. He's never shown to have like a Cody Garbrandt level chin to just be knocked out by jabs or like small shots. I think he'll take a few of Vera's shots. And in his recent fight against Chris Gutierrez, he did look very good. And he won that fight by a 30-27 decision, and in the process, kind of turned back a brief kind of hype train of Chris Gutierrez, who a lot of people thought was going to make the top 10. So I do think Marlon Vera is going to win this fight, but I think he'll win a decision, and I think it'll be a 29-28, maybe even a split. Um, I think Munhoz as well in the Sean O'Malley fight. We've got to think Sean O'Malley's gone competitively with Peter Yan, and that Pedro Munhoz fight was only a few months prior to Sean O'Malley versus Peter Yan, and it was pretty even on the feet. Not too much happening. Munhoz wasn't getting hit with that many shots until that eye poke caused the no contest. I do think O'Malley would have won that fight had it continued, but you got to look at that fight and say Munhoz wasn't getting pieced up by Sean O'Malley. And I think 100% that Sean O'Malley is a much better striker, technically at least, than Marlon Vera. So I think Marlon Vera is going to hurt Pedro Munhoz when he hits him, like he does with everyone. But Sandhagen, who's got a decent, pretty good chin, he's been hurt and dropped before, so it's not like he's got a granite chin. He took Chito Vera's shots. He was never wobbled in that fight. He was able to stay defensively sound and away from danger. So I do think that Pedro Munhoz can avoid most of the big shots, but I do think the damage is just different. When you're fighting Chito Vera, you're at a disadvantage just based off the fact that you can't score visible damage against this guy. And that's one of the key scoring criteria in MMA is visible damage. If there's no visible if no one gets rocked in a round, if you see them with a busted up eye or a bloody nose or a cut on them anywhere, then that's visible damage, and that really helps to scoring a round for someone. But Chito Vera, took so many shots, elbows, big shots, knees from Corey Sandhagen, and came out of the fight looking like he'd just been on vacation. It was ridiculous. He didn't take any visible damage in that fight. His chin is stupid, and his skin is like leather because he just doesn't get cut at all, and he doesn't get bruised. It's really weird because Corey Sandhagen hits hard. Like Sean O'Malley hits hard. Dominick Cruz, not I wouldn't say he hits hard, but he hits people. Like Rob Font was jabbing him up. The amount of strikes Rob Font landed, and Chito Vera looked like he just came off the couch after that fight. It was absolutely ridiculous. So I don't think Pedro Munhoz is going to have the power or the ferocity in his shots to cut open or hurt Marlon Vera. So I think this fight's just going to come down to Munhoz is not going to hurt Vera. I think he's going to land a lot more shots than him because Vera takes a while to get going. That's another thing in this matchup. Is the general slow startingness of Chito Vera. It's going to be interesting to see him fight in a 3-rounder. I think the last 3-rounder he had, it was quite a while ago. I just want to check his record briefly, but I want to say like 2020, like Sean O'Malley or Song Yudong. Um, Chito Vera record. Um, yeah, I think he's been because his most Sanhagen, Cruz, Font, like he's been in 5 rounders. Edgar was the last 3-rounder that he had. Back at UFC 289, I believe it would have been. Um, yeah, 268, sorry, what am I saying? Yeah, Frankie Edgar, he fought at UFC 268. And in that fight as well, he was losing to Frankie Edgar, before he got that front kick knockout. So I think we're going to see a similar situation. I think Marlon Vera is going to be losing this fight to Pedro Munhoz, and we're going to be like, what the hell, Munhoz is so good. And then all of a sudden, he's just going to get cracked with a shot at the end of the second round, lose that round, and he's going to be piecing him up for the first like 2, and then right at the end of the second, just get dropped with a big shot or get wobbled or cut open. And then in the third round, Munhoz is going to be getting back into it, just like with Font. And he's going to be getting back into it, landing more good shots. And then halfway through the third round, another big shot, like a front kick up the middle. And then bam, he's just stole 2 of the rounds based off just 2 shots. And then he loses the rest of the fight other than that. But just on visible damage and on damage trumping all in the scoring criteria, I think he's just going to win this fight on the scorecards. I wouldn't be shocked to see him get a finish. Obviously, Munhoz has been put away before, but yeah, I don't rate Vera's like technical striking that much. I don't think he's that good in the technical striking, and I think he just got exposed in his grappling big time by Corey Sandhagen, who took him down and dominated him on the ground. So that really doesn't look good for him either, and I could see Munhoz trying to exploit that. While not the biggest grappler or the most like dominant grappler in the bantamweight division, anyone can base a training camp around wrestling, and I think that's what he's going to do. So I think he'll lose this fight. But yeah, moving on to another fight that's been made recently. Tai Tuivasa versus Alexander Volkov is official for September 9th. That's UFC 293 in Sydney, Australia. That's one of the few fights that has been announced for that card. We've also got Kai Kara France versus Manel Kape. Carlos Olberg's fighting on there as well. Casey O'Neill. So a few good fights on there so far, but this is the first kind of big notable one that's definitely going to be on the main card. Maybe in a main card opener or a third fight on the card kind of spot. But as far as the matchup going, it's a tough fight for Tai Tuivasa. I'll be honest, I'm not going to pick him to win this initially. I'm going to have to be leading with Alexander Volkov as an early lean. I think he's just so much technically better, and the range is going to be a big problem. Tai was struggling with the range of Cyril Gane, who is he's a better striker than Volkov, but not by a ridiculous amount. Like Volkov had a relatively competitive fight with Cyril Gane. And he's been looking good in his recent fights too, Volkov. He knocked out Jairzinho Rozenstruik in the first round, and then he who did he beat? Alexander Romanov as well back in March. He TKO'd him in the first round. So Volkov's looking really good. Before that, he lost to Tom Aspinall, but Tom Aspinall in that fight looked like he could have beat any heavyweight in the world. And he just got taken down and got submitted. I don't see Tai Tuivasa having any success in the grappling. And for the most part, Volkov has shown decent takedown defense. It's not like he's a Cyril Gane who just gets taken down at will. I think what you're going to be best looking for in this fight or in terms of to watch, I think is going to be the Volkov versus kind of the Rozenstruiks and the Derek Lewis as well. That fight's going to be one I want to watch. And then for Tai Tuivasa, you got to kind of watch the Cyril Gane fight. back. Obviously, did lose that fight, got TKO'd, and then he lost to Sergey Pavlovich. For coming into this fight on the back of 2 bad knockouts, I don't like this for Tai. I was preferring the guy like a Jairzinho Rozenstruik or an Alexander Romanov or something, like just a less dangerous person for him who he can have a better chance of winning on the feet with. I'm not saying he won't win this fight. He could catch Volkov just like Derek Lewis did back in 2018 on UFC 229. But I think Volkov's just looking really good in his recent fights. He's been around the heavyweight division for quite a while, but he hasn't shown to be getting worse. He hasn't looked bad in his recent performances either. Um, and I do think he is going to win this fight. I think he'll win a decision or maybe even get a TKO. I think the body kicks, the teeps to the body, and the leg kicks as well are going to be a big thing in this matchup. He's going to have a massive reach, I can imagine. Tai Tuivasa, I know, has 76 inches of reach. Volkov, I believe, has got like 80 something. I want to check that now. But yeah, that's going to be a clear advantage for Volkov. And Volkov would be best to watch that Cyril Gane versus Tai Tuivasa fight and really figure out how he can just bother Tai at range. I'm just going to search up Alexander Volkov reach. But yeah, he's going to want to watch that Cyril Gane fight. And reach, he's got an 80-inch reach. So 4-inch reach advantage, not too bad. But we saw, I think Gane had like a 5-inch reach advantage, and he really gave Tai problems at range, just teeping in the body, really frustrating him, jabbing him at range. Volkov's going to be looking to do that as well. And yeah, I just think the long range weapons, those straight shots from Volkov are going to be really difficult. Tai was like having a pretty even fight with Derek Lewis on the feet. While I love him and he's such an entertaining guy, and it's great when he gets knockouts, his wins recently are over Derek Lewis and Augusto Sakai. Like he had a few wins before that as well, but not against high level competition. Like Volkov could even take him down. Volkov's won a few fights in the grappling before. Like I see this as a fight where Tai just has to look for the big shot, and then Volkov has many other ways to win just using any form of technical martial arts. He can strike him at range. He best be careful on the feet though, because like with Derek Lewis, he can get caught at any time. But again, for the most part, he's shown a pretty good chin. Most people get knocked down by Derek Lewis or get knocked out. Like pretty much everyone that takes clean shots from Lewis goes out, unless you're Tai Tuivasa, who's got a granite Samoan chin. But recently, his granite Samoan chin has become a little less granite and more like a rusting iron because in that Cyril Gane fight he got worn away and got TKO'd and put out against Pavlovich. He got starched in a minute and just swarmed and out brawled. It's never good to see a brawler who wins all their fights by knockouts in the pocket. It's never good for them or good for their confidence to see them just get out brawled and just smoked in a minute. He got beaten up badly by Sergey Pavlovich. So I think Volkov, as much as I love Tai and I'll be rooting him to win this fight, and I might watch some tape and maybe change my mind, but I just got to go with the logistics and how I'm seeing this fight technically. And I really do see Volkov with the technical edge in all areas. Tai's going to have to kick at the legs like he does. He's had some good success with the calf kicks recently. Um, like all I'm gonna say is like Greg Hardy had Tai on skates briefly before the knockout, um, and that's Greg Hardy who's just on a like 6-fight losing streak, losing to truck drivers in BKFC. So I don't like anything. I don't like any adversity that gets shown to you from Greg Hardy when you're going to be going up against Alexander Volkov, who's been at the top of the heavyweight division for a very long time, and who's fought pretty much all the styles that there are at the heavyweight division. I just want to search up again Alexander Volkov's record. He's 36-10 on a 2-fight win streak. Lost to Aspinall, beat Tybura, lost to Gane, beat Overeem, Walt Harris, lost to Curtis Blades, lost to Derek Lewis. Before that, yeah, beat Struve, Nelson, Fabricio Verdum, Greg Hardy. Like, his losses are mostly to grapplers, and then with the one exception being the KO to Derek Lewis. Um, but yeah, I just see him with all the advantages in this fight. The home crowd's going to be for Tai. Hopefully, he can be cheered to a knockout victory late. Maybe has a Derek Lewis-like moment. Gets a late finish. But if Volkov just watches the range and comes into this fight smart, not trying to get a highlight reel knockout straight away, keeps him at range, teeps him to the body, kicks him in the legs, jabs him into the face. Tai hasn't shown the best defense to straight punches, as shown in the Cyril Gane fight. I see this being a rough night for Tai Tuivasa, and I can see him losing in Australia. So it'll be unfortunate for him, but I see him losing. But anyway, moving on to the final key fight announcement that's been made. Um, Deiveson Figueiredo versus Dominick Cruz is in the works or rumored or close to finalized for an unknown date in September. So this one's not official yet. Those other three were. Um, but this is a big fight in the bantamweight division, so I just had to talk about it, even though it's not official. I could start with kind of trying to figure out when it's going to be. The two cards you're pretty much looking at are the Australia pay-per-view, maybe. Neither of them are Australian, so it would be a bit weird, but I could see them doing that, just to add another big fight onto there. Or maybe the Mexico or the September 16th Mexican Independence Day card, which has some kind of Mexican themes, Latino, South American, all those kind of fighters on there. Figueiredo's Brazilian. I mean, Dominick Cruz, his second name's Cruz. I don't know. They could try and figure something out there. They could be main eventing a September 23rd Apex fight night, but this isn't really the fight that I would see as a headliner of a fight night. As Figueiredo moving up from bantamweight, so moving up from flyweight, he's unranked in the bantamweight division. So I wouldn't see this main eventing a fight night, or there could be a there's another fight night that's got nothing on it for September 30th as well. So that could be on there. But I'm probably looking at either the September 16th or the Australia pay-per-view for when this fight's going to take place. But it's a really intriguing fight in the bantamweight division. Deiveson Figueiredo moving up from flyweight after his quadrilogy fourth fight loss to Brandon Moreno. He said he was going to move up. He had a fight booked with Manel Kape that fell through because he was medically unfit to compete. Um, that was meant to be for this weekend. How sick would that have been if that was on this card? But I'm kind of glad he's moving up. It's clear that he's starting to look worse for wear at flyweight. The cut was getting to him. That he was draining too much weight to try and make 125. So 135 Figueiredo, I can see being rejuvenated, and I can see him being able to really focus on his technique more and his fight camp, rather than just focusing more on a weight cutting camp instead of trying to learn new techniques and really focus in. Because if you looked at the third and fourth fights with Brandon Moreno, he really showed no improvements in the fourth fight, and it was pretty much all Moreno the whole time. He had like a close guillotine attempt and a brief like leg lock attempt at the end of the first round, but other than that, it was pretty much all Moreno. And he got punched in the eye, which swelled up his eye, cut his eye open, which led to the doctor stoppage in between the third and fourth rounds. Um, so I'm glad he's moving up to bantamweight. And as for Dominick Cruz as well, coming off a year layoff, it's going to be roughly the last time he fought was against Marlon Vera when he got knocked out in the fourth round. But in that fight, wasn't looking too bad. Was winning that fight 2-1 against Chito Vera, but as like with all Vera's opponents, he was pretty much just losing when he was getting dropped. But apart from that, he was out techniquing Vera, getting some nice slick takedowns. Doesn't look too bad. Before that, had the win over Pedro Munhoz, I believe it was, back at UFC 269 in December. So like he's not the most active fighter, so I could see that being a problem for him because he's got his job at the UFC. He works as a commentator for most of the fight night events. So I can see him like kind of slowing down. He's getting a bit older. He's in his mid-30s. So I don't like that for him. But against Figueiredo, who's coming up from flyweight, where his main success was his size and strength and power over everyone, I don't see him having that same advantage here. I think his power's gonna increase by a little bit, but it's not gonna have the same effect on the bantamweights. I like Dominick Cruz is not a granite chin fighter. Um, but like if he fights someone else other than Dominic Cruz, like if he's fighting like a Marlon Vera, he's gonna get smoked because I think when you're coming up, you're gonna lose your kind of speed that you had it down at flyweight. You get a bit slower. You probably increase your gas tank a little bit because you're cutting less weight and you help your chin. But the power is really not going to have as much of an effect. I don't think you're going to see Figueiredo just starching guys. Like Dominic Cruz was taking shots from Vera. Like he did get knocked out at the end, but he was taking clean shots from Chito Vera, taking shots from Pedro Munhoz in his prime, taking shots from like the likes of Dillashaw and Garbrandt. Um, so yeah, I can see early lean. I'm actually gonna have to go with Dominic Cruz in a three rounder. I'll pick Dominick Cruz to win this fight. I'll watch some more tape and I'll kind of figure it out. And I want to see how dedicated Dominick Cruz is to the fight game at this point in his career because he's getting older and he's secured a job at the UFC working on the desk. So maybe he's just not too much caring about fighting and he's just kind of walking out there to collect paychecks just to kind of keep his relevancy as a commentator. Um, but from what I saw in the Vera fight, I think he could just. He's still very elusive. He's still um, really good at evading shots. He's quite defensively sound for the most part. Chito Vera is a sniper of a fighter. He's a guy that will read you and figure out what you're doing and catch you at the right point. And we saw that with how he set up that head kick knockout in the fourth round. But Figueiredo's never been a guy to set you up or to really show some really high fight IQ. He's never been he's not a dumb fighter by any means, but he's never been a really smart technical fighter. He kind of all was just starching guys down at flyweight because they couldn't handle his power. Because let's be real, he's a bantamweight that's just cutting an extra 10 pounds. Like if he could make flyweight, like I'm saying, guys like Peter Yan can make flyweight. I'm saying like Song Yadong could probably make flyweight. Like Marab could definitely make flyweight. If Figueiredo is making flyweight, then fuck Marab can make flyweight. Um, but it will be interesting in this matchup to see how his power translate, how his speed, cardio, chin, all of that differ or upgrade or downgrade by going up a division. But as so far, I'm just going to have to go with Cruz evading the shots over 3 rounds. He's going to be able to like not worry. Like if that Rivera fight was 3 rounds and it went the way it was, he just won that fight 29-28. If that Vera fight was 3 rounds, so I think the longer it goes on, the more risk he's got of getting chinned and getting caught with a big shot. But early, he's as fast and as evasive as any guys in the lower weight classes, and I can see him really causing Figueiredo problems. He's going to have a big size advantage here as well. Cruz has always been a bigger bantamweight, always been a guy that could afford at featherweight. Back when him and Cruz were both, when him and Aldo were both the champions, there was like talks about that fight potentially happening. Never did in the end, unfortunately. But he's a guy that could have gone up to featherweight and not even been the smallest guy there. So Figueiredo, who's a big flyweight, going up against Cruz, who's a relatively big bantamweight. Cruz should have a big size advantage, and I can't even see him hurting Figueiredo with some shots. Moreno was dropping and hurting Figgy with punches, and not even big punches in their fights. Figueiredo's never shown to have a granite chin. Maybe it'll be helped by cutting less weight, but just from what we've seen so far, I'm going to have to go with Dominick Cruz. Um, but I'll come back to you when this fight's officially announced, and then I'll obviously make my final prediction the night or the week of when the fight's going to happen. But yeah, that's that fight done. I'll just go over some smaller fights that have been announced recently. William Gomez versus Lucas Almeida for September 2nd. That's in Paris. I'll have to lean towards William Gomez in this matchup. Matthew Semmelsberger versus Uros Medic for UFC 291, July 29th. I'm going to go with Semmelsberger. These are all leans, though, not official picks. Yusaku Kinoshita versus Billy Goff, August 26th. I'll go with Kinoshita. Um, who else? We've got like obviously Bo Nickel versus Valentin Woodburn. Tomorrow I'm picking Bo Nickel. Obviously Della's fight got cancelled. Scrolling through here, Marcus McGee versus JP Byers. I'll go with Marcus McGee. JP Byers is on he's 0-3 in the UFC, and Marcus McGee looks good in his debut. When's that fight for? August 12th. Juliana Miller versus Luana Santos. I'll pick Luana Santos. Juliana Miller looked horrendous in her last fight. I'm not picking her again until she actually shows to be good. Jake Matthews versus Miguel Beza. July 29th. I'll pick Jake Matthews. He looked good in the Semmelsberger fight, but was just getting dropped at the wrong moments. And he's got power. And in that Fiallo fight, he looked really good. So I'm picking him to win this fight by a knockout. Tracy Cortez versus Jasmine Jasdavicius, September 16th. I'll go with Jasmine Jasdavicius. Cortez hasn't fought in long. She hasn't fought recently enough for me to have confidence in her. She seems more worried with who her ex-boyfriend is dating than the fight game. So I'm picking Jasmine, who just came off a really good win and broke into the rankings against Miranda Maverick. Um, and apart from that's it. So those are all those smaller fight announcements. Got all the big fight announcements out of the way. Obviously, Jones versus Stipe, big fight. Vera versus Munhoz, Tai versus Volkov, and then Figueiredo versus Cruz. All big fight announcements recently. The next video is going to be the post-fight reaction, and then the day after, I'm going to be recording the podcast. So I'll see you guys then. Catch ya.